So, what if I told you that one of the most devastating hacking tools in history isn't some super complex virus, but a single piece of punctuation? Today, we're going to dive into a 20-year-old bug that literally weaponizes an apostrophe to steal millions, and I mean millions of records every single year.
I mean, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? Just think about that. A tiny little apostrophe, the kind you type 100 times a day, can cause more damage than some of the most sophisticated malware ever created. So, how is that even possible? Let's find out.
All right, let's get right into it. First up, we're talking about weaponized punctuation. And I love that phrase, because it's exactly what it is. It's about how one simple character can act like a digital skeleton key, unlocking a company's most guarded secrets. So what in the world is SQL Injection, or SQI as you'll hear it called? Well, think of it like this. An attacker uses a totally normal input box on a website, like a login field or a search bar, to whisper secret commands to the database hiding in the background. They're basically tricking the database into spilling all its secrets. And what's wild is that this entire attack, from the hacker's keyboard all the way to the heart of a massive corporate database, it all hinges on one single character. An innocent-looking apostrophe, just slipped into the right spot, can completely shatter the system's logic and pry open a door that was supposed to be sealed shut. But how can one little apostrophe do all that? Well, that brings us to my favorite part, how to lie to a database. This isn't about writing thousands of lines of code, nope. It's about exploiting a simple, flawed bit of logic to turn a database completely against itself. Okay, check this out, because this is the core trick. On the left, you've got a normal login. The database asks, hey, does this username and this password match? Simple enough, right? But look at the right. The attacker uses an injection to change the question. Now the database is asked, does this user exist? Or is 1 equal to 1? Well, guess what? 1 always equals 1. So the database says, yep, that's true. And boom, the door swings open. No password needed. And this is where it all goes so wrong. It's a 4-step journey to disaster. The attacker puts their tricky text into a search box. The server, which is supposed to be the bouncer, just blindly stitches that text into a real command. The database then runs it, not realizing it's been manipulated, and just starts handing over all the sensitive data. It's a total breakdown of trust.
And why go through all this trouble? The goal is simple, and it is devastating. It's about bypassing login screens, stealing entire lists of customer data, grabbing credit card numbers, or in the worst-case scenario, taking complete control of the entire system.
Now, when these attacks actually work, the consequences are, well, they're catastrophic. Which brings us to Section 3, the devastating aftermath. We're not talking about hypotheticals here. We're talking about real-world damage that has ended careers and toppled companies. 145 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many user records were stolen from a single company because of one of these vulnerabilities. The scale of the damage from what is, essentially, a single typo is just staggering.
And listen, this isn't some obscure threat that only hits small websites. It has hit the biggest names you can think of. Major social media giants, government agencies, huge retailers, your favorite gaming networks. No one is immune if this tiny crack exists in their foundation.
The fallout from this is just immense. It's so much more than just lost data. People's careers can evaporate overnight. Companies get hit with crippling lawsuits and fines. And maybe worst of all, the trust that customers put in a brand, it can be shattered, sometimes forever.
Okay, so that's the scary part, but it is not all doom and gloom. There are absolutely proven ways to defend against this. And that brings us to Section 4, Building the Digital Fortress. This is all about being a builder, not a victim.
And I love this slide because it really boils it down to a battle of mindsets. The attacker is always looking to exploit trust, right? To find that one weak link. So the defender's job is to build a system based on one core principle: zero trust. Never, ever, ever trust what a user types into a box. It's a fundamental shift in how you think. So how do you actually build this fortress? Well, it comes down to 3 core tactics. First, you validate all input. You basically treat everything a user gives you as hostile until you can prove it's safe. Second, you use something called prepared statements. Think of it like a fill-in-the-blanks puzzle. The command is the puzzle, and the user's data can only fill in a blank. It can never change the puzzle itself. And third, you apply the principle of least privilege. You only give the app the keys to the rooms it absolutely has to get into, and nothing more.
But at the end of the day, the real solution goes way beyond just the technical fixes. Because true security, it's not just a feature you code into an app. It's a culture. It's an attitude of awareness and responsibility that everyone, from the newest developer all the way up to the CEO, has to share.
And this brings us to the final, really critical question. If we've known how to stop this for decades, why is it still one of the top security threats today? Section 5. Why the threat remains. It's really the story of an old blade that keeps finding the gaps in new armor.
I mean, just look at this timeline. This was first talked about publicly in 1998. In internet years, that is ancient. That's the digital Stone Age. And yet here we are decades later, and it's still a top risk. Why? Usually it's because of simple mistakes, old legacy systems that no one wants to touch, and just plain rushed development.
Plus, the attacks have gotten way smarter. The early versions were noisy. They'd make the website spit out obvious error messages. But modern attacks can be completely blind and totally silent. They sneakily ask the database thousands of true or false questions to steal data one tiny bit at a time, often without leaving any obvious trace.
And that's what's so terrifying about the modern version of this attack. A website can look totally fine on the surface. No glitches, no errors. Meanwhile, in the background, a silent attacker could be slowly, patiently draining its entire database. So remember, silence does not mean safety.
And that really gets to the heart of it all. At its core, a database is honest. It's designed to give you exactly what you ask for, no questions asked. The real danger of SQL injection is that it takes that honest system and it teaches it how to lie and how to tell its deepest secrets to the absolute worst person.
And of course, we have to end on this really critical reminder. We explain these concepts for one reason and one reason only, to help you understand how to build a defense. Trying to use any of these techniques on a website you don't have explicit permission to test is illegal and incredibly harmful. The goal, always, is to build a safer internet for everyone. Thanks for joining me. Maybe the next time you type into a search bar, you'll think a little differently about the conversation you're really having.